Hello, everybody, and welcome to Level the Field Leadership. I'm so very thankful that you have decided to use the next few to have to say. And I think today's topic is a really important one because we live in a world where there's so much noise. And so sometimes we just need to learn when to be quiet, right? So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Dr. Rachel Gallardo, and I'm an industrial organizational psychologist. Very, very excited to have you here with me. I do believe that it's important to have tools in our tool chest to help us whenever certain situations encounter in the workplace. Because quite frankly, if you don't have the tools to be able to deal with certain situations, then things can go awry very, very quickly. I do believe that workplace burnout is very real, and anything we can do to reduce burnout and fatigue in our leadership roles is going to positively impact our team. It's going to help us. It's going to help our families, the whole nine yards. I do try to post a new episode on the second and the fourth Tuesday of the month. So if you are not currently subscribed, I encourage you to hit the subscribe button wherever you happen to be listening to the sound of my voice. And that way, whenever new content shows up, then you can be notified. If this is not your first episode, I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for tuning in. Please share this information with other people. I don't get paid to do this. I just enjoy doing it because I do believe that it's important for there to be resources and materials to help people on their leadership journey. So if you are more of a visual person and you want to see me talk and all of the hand waving and things like that that go on, I speak with my hands. It is what it is. Feel free to check me out on YouTube. I do also try to post short videos there. So that way, if you just need a little bit of nugget of information, you got it. So anyways, let's dive into it. For those of you that are not new here, you already know the vibe. I like to start us off with a scripture just to kind of get us in the right mindset of what it is we're going to be talking about. So today's scripture comes from Ecclesiastes 3:7. A time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak. And so this really helps us understand that with every season, there is something that we should be dealing with, something that is going on. And quite frankly, the seasons are always changing. There's a really popular song that's probably stuck in your head now after hearing that verse. But it always just kind of reminds me that sometimes situations are only for a season. So if you're going through something really, really challenging right now, keep that in the back of your mind. The seasons are changing. New things are going to happen for you. You just have to hang in there. But as far as the power of the pause, so I really want to get into this because I think that this is super important. First of all, leaders often feel like they have to speak first. So let's dive into the why behind that. So leadership in a lot of ways, you have to or people assume you have to have this confidence, you have to be decisive, you have to be really knowledgeable. And so there's a lot of pressure for leaders to feel like they have to say something, even if they don't really have something valuable to say. And there's this terrible misconception that if you are silent, then that means that you are uncertain, that you have weakness, that maybe you're not knowledgeable about a particular area. Because quite frankly, if you knew what to do, then you would just speak up, right? Like you would just go ahead and tell everybody what's going on. And quite frankly, it's not really their fault. So we're not going to criticize people for thinking that they have to speak up because your ability to speak up is what has gotten you to this point in your leadership journey, anyways. You've shown time and time again that you are knowledgeable about a particular area, that you can be relied upon, that you give sound advice, that you have interesting perspective. And so you've been classically conditioned this entire time, whether it's 5, 10, 15, 20 years, however long in your career, that you have to speak up. And so then when you're in a leadership position, that pressure to do so becomes that much more adamant because that's what you've always done. It got you to where you're at right now, and everybody's looking to you to have an answer. So you feel like you have to have an answer. And so because many leaders don't rise by remaining quiet, they rose by solving problems. And so the challenge is knowing when this strength now becomes a limitation. And I've talked about this before. We can have very strong abilities, but oftentimes those very strong abilities can, after a certain point, kind of start to get in the way. So there's this particular bell curve that you have to be really, really mindful of. And if you go too far on the bell curve or you don't go far enough up the hill of the bell curve, either one of those are going to be a detriment for that particular skill and ability that you have. So keep that in mind. Our strengths can turn into limitations if they're not utilized properly. So item number two. So first we kind of talked about why we sometimes feel the need that we have to talk, but whenever we do talk, your voice can actually shut down what's going on your team. So you saying something can actually cause the rest of your team to go quiet. Whether you want to believe this or not, you do have a certain level of authority. And that's not to say that you're an authoritarian and that you're a dictator and you're, barking out orders for people. But quite frankly, they are looking to you. The people on your team are looking to you for decisions to, guide them in a certain way. There are some people that, especially if you're talking about an older generation, somebody that's on your team, you have a certain title. So the fact that you have that title means that I'm going to respect you simply because I respect the title of your position. And so your title has more weight than what you're likely giving it credit for. And even if you've got somebody younger on your team or you've got a lot of young people on your team, they're still looking to you because you're the supervisor. Like you're the designated team lead. And even though y'all are cool and you communicate really well and you're kind of all hanging out on the same level, when it comes to sharing information or moving something forward or making a decision for your team, you still have the title. So you're going to have to carry that weight to a certain extent. And many teams often interpret the leader's input as the final decision. So there are a lot of people that make the assumption of, well, Rachel said that it was going to be like this, so there's really no point in me saying anything else. She's already made up her mind, and so here we go. And that's just simply not true. So the unintended consequence of you speaking up means that there's going to be a fewer exchange of ideas. There's going to be less debate, which it should be healthy debate, no screaming and yelling. Let's act like adults here. And you're also going to show there's also going to be reduced innovation. And again, I'm sure that that's not your intent. But whenever you're too quick to speak, that's what the negative collateral damage is going to be. So you've got to be really careful. If you're asking your team to like have a brainstorming session or let's do some creative thinking around this problem and you immediately share your perspective on it, the room is going to go quiet. Everybody is going to think that they've arrived at a decision. You, the leader, are going to be like, oh, wow, that was a great session because here we go. We've got this great idea. You don't have a great idea. Everybody else just stopped contributing. And so your idea was the only one on the table, which is why things are moving forward. So you've got to start asking yourself, are the words that you're saying, are they inviting people to think openly and out loud, or are you causing that to come to an end? And leaders are either doing one of two things, and you're doing it on a regular basis, whether you realize that or not. So there are situations where you need to be absolutely quiet. And we're going to talk here in a minute about situations where silence is the absolute worst possible thing. But I think too often we're too quick to want to speak. And so that's why I'm trying to focus more on really thinking about when you're talking and what you're saying, because that really and truly matters. So there's a difference between strategic silence and straight up avoidance. So silence is only powerful when it is intentional and it's also visible. There was an article from the Center for Creative Leadership, and I'm just going to read it here. It says, this research discussed how leaders' speaking behaviors influence team dynamics, specifically showing that leaders often speak far more than team members, and that over talking can undermine participation and psychological safety. It complements academic work with practical evidence that listening and intentional restraint fosters a more open and participative culture. So if you go and read that article, it's from Speaking Time and Leadership, Why Roles May Matter. It's from 2025, the Center for Creative Leadership. And I didn't generate that summary. That was an AI generated summary, but it's important because it does show that leaders' speaking behaviors does influence team dynamics. So everything you say and everything you don't say is going to create some sort of narrative in this person's mind that's going to tell them it's safe for me to contribute. Yes, my ideas are going to be valued, even if they're not accepted. They still want to be heard. Or you're going to cause people to shut down. And quite frankly, if you have this constant shutdown, this avoidance is going to ultimately erode trust and it's going to have restraints built into your team because people are going to think, well, there's no point in me speaking up. I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to wait for them to tell me what it is that I need to do, and then I'm going to go and do it. And so even if you choose not to speak, right, you've got to show which sometimes you need to keep your mouth shut. Like, let's just remember we got different seasons and we should be doing things, right? Nonverbal cues are important as well. So if you're sitting there scrolling on your phone or you're not making eye contact, you're already telling this person that I'm already checked out. I've already made my decision for what it is that we're going to do. You can go ahead and tell me your little story and give me your little ideas, but I've already decided that this is what we're going to do. So nonverbal cues are very important. You want to lean into the conversation. You want to look that person in the eye. If you're the type of person that you've got things running around your head at 100 miles an hour, have a notepad with you so you can write down your thoughts and ideas because just writing it down frees up your mind to actually pay attention to what this other person is saying. And then after that person talks, open it up to everybody else. Be like, all right, well, what do y'all think about that? Let's explore this particular option. I want to hear what everybody else has to say before I say anything. I value what you guys are thinking and I don't want to intrude. So do you have those sorts of language? Like, do those words come out of your mouth whenever people are offering up suggestions? Or are you quick to jump in and be like, yeah, okay, well, maybe we'll do that, but I don't think so. What is it that you're saying? So there are some absolute positive times when you do need to speak, even if you want to remain silent. Sorry, with this, you don't have the option for it because you are the leader. People are looking to you to make the decision. And so you've got to be able to communicate that effectively. So silence is not neutral in moments that are involving straight up ethics and values. So if somebody is being harmed in any sort of way, if there's, financial issues that are happening, if you know that somebody is stealing from the company, like there's any sort of harassment that are going on, that is not the time to be quiet. That is the time for you to be a leader, put on your hat and your heels, and go take care of the issue right then and there. Do not delay. Do not think about it. Don't assess it and look at it for no. This is when your intuition as a leader, yet that gut discernment ability that you have as a leader needs to kick in and you need to say something. If there's any sort of disrespectful or harmful behavior, you've got to use your voice, you've got to speak up even if you in the situation right then and there, and then if you need time to kind of think through what you want to say in more detail, that's fine. But if there's any sort of harmful behavior that's occurring immediately, we've got to address it. And then also when it comes to organizational uncertainty or change, people do not like change. As much as they like to say that they're open to new ideas and they want to hear what other people have to say, no, they don't. No, they don't. This is why they take the same route to and from work. They order mostly the same thing every time they go to the restaurant. They buy the same thing when they go to the grocery store, and they're getting their gas from the same exact place. People do not like change. They find it very comfortable, very familiar. And whenever your organization is going through major change initiatives, you as the leader have to speak, and you actually have to speak more often than what you would in times of calm. Because if you don't speak more often, there can be mixed messages. The rumor mills can really fly. And so you as the leader need to be the point person of constant um, communication on a consistent basis to help reassure people and help them to continue to move forward. If you delay or if you offer any sort of vague communication, you are going to damage your credibility. It is going to damage any sort of change initiatives that the organization is trying to implement. And you're going to have a lot more resistance to the change than if you had just been transparent and authentic from the beginning. So it's super super important that you're very decisive in what it is you're going to do. I go back one of my favorites leaders in a moment of crisis with Captain Sully. The way that he was able to land that plane in the Hudson River, if you have not had an opportunity to listen to the communication that happened between him and air traffic control, I strongly recommend that you go and do it because the air traffic controller is telling him, well, you can do this, you can do this. And he was like, negative, that is not going to work. No, we don't have enough fuel for that. No, I don't have time to turn around and do that. Like he was making decisions in the moment and just in the moment said, you know what? I'm putting the plane in the Hudson River. Here's what we're doing. Executed it, and everybody got off the plane alive. So it's in those moments that it's really important that we do use our voice. He could have said, well, okay, well, let me think about that. Maybe all of those people could have died, right? And so we really want to make sure that we are communicating information because your silence is teaching people about what you will and won't tolerate. And if you have a bigger threshold for that, then that's on you. But ultimately, what you say and what you don't say in those crisis moments, in those high intensity moments, will ultimately matter. So finally, I just want to say that the culture of your silence can actually be a very good thing because you are modeling how to have dialogue with other people in the organization. And people are watching how you speak to individuals, and they are more likely to do that same thing. So one of the greatest things that we as leaders can really appreciate is if somebody models our behavior, you just want to make sure that the behavior that other people are modeling is going to be helpful and effective for the organization. The team is going to mirror whatever your behavior is. So if you are panicked, irrational, not thinking through things, speaking, cutting people off, not listening to other people's ideas, other people on your team are either more likely to do that or they're going to shut down completely, which neither of those are okay. But if you say, I want to hear more information, hey, so and so, I haven't heard from you. What do you think? What do you see from this perspective? Other people are more likely to do that as well. You're more likely to have dialogue and engaging conversations, and even engaging conversations that you may not necessarily be a part of because you've modeled the way of how to remain silent and listen to what everybody else is saying. And long term, that intentional silence is going to be very helpful for you. It's going to help you be a stronger decision maker. You're going to increase trust that's on your team, and you're actually going to increase the chances that your trajectory within the organization or within your career improves because people will learn that you are somebody that while you may not have much to say in the moment, that you do have a lot of insight and that you are choosing to remain quiet so you can gather your thoughts and gather all of the information before you make a decision. And that shows a lot of self-control. It shows a lot of self-awareness. It shows a lot of emotional intelligence. And those are some key competencies that we really and truly need the higher up the ladder an individual goes. So, a couple of things to think about. I want to start leaving you guys with some homework. Do you speak to clarify or control? Because whenever you choose to talk, you're doing one of two things. And we want to try to aim for showing how powerful pausing can be. Okay, so why are you talking? What often do I allow silence before responding? So what type of silence is allowed and how often do I allow the silence to occur? Are you being quiet because you're trying to be intentional or because you're uncomfortable? So if you're being quiet because you're too nervous to talk, that's a completely separate issue. But if you're being quiet because you really want to sit with this idea and you want to sit with what other people have said, then that's going to increase the ability for other people to share as well. And then I want to challenge you to think about too, if I didn't say anything for 5 more seconds, what would happen? And this is going to be an exercise that some of you are going to have to practice because you don't need to always jump in and make a comment. Sometimes it's good to just sit back and listen. Sometimes it's good to sit back and observe. You don't need to have the answers right then and there. So I hope that this is giving you a little bit of a different perspective whenever we're talking about silence. Remember, leadership is not measured by how much you speak. It is measured by the impact of your presence. And the most effective leaders do know how to use their voice when it's needed, but they also know how to take a step back for others people to be able to step in. So as you move throughout your work week over the next couple of weeks, I want you to pay attention to the moments where silence is uncomfortable. And again, I want you to ask yourself, is that discomfort because you don't have anything to say, or do you just not know what to say? But use that discomfort as an opportunity to build growth and trust and culture building by just choosing to remain quiet. Sometimes the most powerful thing that we can say is to say absolutely nothing at all. And quite frankly, if you're quiet, you won't be misquoted. So remember, you are made to be a leader right where you are, wherever you are leading. This podcast, I hope, can help you level the challenges that you face while walking the journey of leadership. Take care of yourself, take care of your team. Share this episode with somebody you know who is struggling with being quiet or maybe needs to learn how to be a little more quiet. I have no doubt that it will help them, but I fully believe that you can do this. So take care of yourself, take care of your teams, and until next time.